Hello, everybody. Welcome to Furuya Uncorked. I'm Chuck Furuya. This is the creator, the mastermind, the designer of this whole thing, Kale Furuya. And with every podcast that we do, you know, we're just trying to explore enjoyment of wine from many different perspectives. So we ask a bunch of, starting off, our members of our family and some of our close friends that are attributed to wine. Later on, we're going to ask people from different facets of life. It doesn't have to be wine-oriented, just to get different perspectives on what enjoying wine can be.
That's good.
Yeah, and joining us for this episode is Sean Isono. God, Sean, if I were you, I'd be super nervous right now, man. That camera's looking right at you, bro.
I know it's
and I can't believe your wife let you out of the house.
Well, you should have seen what I walked out with originally. I was like, it's a podcast. So what about,
I vary it up with aloha shirts and regular shirts.
And how long have you been married now?
10 years now.
Wow. 2 children?
Yes.
Ages?
8 and 6. Taisei's 8, Rico's 6.
They're growing up fast.
They are fantastic.
So Sean is the one of the sommeliers at the Halekulani Hotel, the world-class Halekulani Hotel. In addition to that, he has some consulting projects like Nanzan Giro. And how do you say? Giro. And also, you also help out Chef Chris Kajioka with Senia and also Miro Kaimuki.
I went to Miro for the first time 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
My friend Shane is a sous chef.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And do you do the wine pairings there?
Yes, we do wine pairings there.
And then, in addition to that, you're a level 3 in the Court of Master Sommeliers program. I'm assuming that because you have 2 young children, that journey is kind of like on pause right now.
That is on a pause, yes, for now.
But you want to take your level 4?
I think I want to give it a shot. Just to pursue that path. But I think when the time is right, we'll tackle that one again.
So, to me, Sean provides a lot of interesting perspectives that some of our other guests, have not experienced. So that's why we asked him to come on the show. I just want to start off with just some general questions like, what made you get into wine?
The original thing about wine for me, I think, was so I went to school at Santa Clara University, and Santa Clara is basically right down the street from one of the most famous wineries in California, Ridge. And one of the first things I remember my mom saying when she was dropping me off at college was, Ridge is right up the street from you guys. Literally up the mountain, but she's like, it's so close. When you get old enough, you can buy me some wine and bring it home. And so that was sort of the first initial seed that got planted, I think.
Ridge.
And did you end up going there?
Yeah, we ended up going to Ridge, quite a bit actually. The view from up there is amazing. It's awesome. And then,
so Mount Eden is up on the next ridge.
Yeah.
That's another legendary, iconic California winery. So just so you understand, Ridge is like from the 60s, bro. And it was making some of the very finest Cabernet and Zinfandels out of California, period. And in that 1976 Paris Wine Exhibition, Ridge was in there with their Montebello Cabernet. Their vineyard is way the hell up, and it's like magnificent.
And it's in San Luis Obispo?
No, it's in, I guess Cupertino, but Santa Cruz Mountains.
So it's in Cupertino, but the appellation is called Santa Cruz Mountains. It's an elevation thing. It's not by Santa Cruz. It's just at a certain elevation. I don't know if it's 600 or 600 or 800 feet in elevation. Is called, you can call it Santa Cruz Mountain appellation from this point to this point. Ridge is like, oh my goodness, Kali, I'm telling you. And if you recall, I thought that one of the most single memorable red Cabernets out of California I've ever had was a 77 Ridge Montebello. Ever. Holy mackerel. That's the wine. So that's the winery he's talking about. So what was, okay, that's how you got into wine, generally speaking. But what was the aha moment for you? What for wine?
The aha moment I was thinking about I think as you drink wine and you enjoy wine, there's so many different moments that you experience along that path. I was trying to figure out what was maybe the greatest turning point for me as far as
like that moment that this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, so and I don't know if I mean, now it's sort of cliche, like, oh, my life changed after I went to the French Laundry kind of thing. But I was able to go to the French Laundry in 2003 on a whim. Like, we had gone to some. I was bartending in the city and getting into wine. So me and my friend were going on these jaunts into Napa Valley and Sonoma, and so we were having dinner at Bouchon one night, and then so I said, oh, let's go just pop into the French Laundry, because I heard that on a whim you could maybe get a reservation off of a last minute cancellation or something. And then we weren't dressed for it, but we walked in, and then the hostess was really nice, and she's like, I don't have anything for you guys today, but somebody just canceled for next week if you want to come in. And that was that. So we got in, and then I remember sitting down and ordering from the sommelier. I was like, can I have a Bombay Sapphire Martini straight up? And he looks at me and with this very like endearing and comforting glance, and he's like, I'm sorry, but we only do wine here. And then I looked at him, I was like, oh, that's cool, because I wasn't really, I knew about it, I read about it, but I hadn't really experienced that sort of level yet. And then so throughout the whole dinner, he was doing some half bottles for us, and really cool stuff. And that was, I think, when I realized that the experience with wine and the experience as a diner in such a setting is so, or it can be so life-changing. And it's just one of those things that if you have the privilege or the experience of it, it's really kind of cool. So
that's a good between your first experience of wine and that story. Those are two pretty good stories to start off with.
So make sure you talk up close, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So okay, so when you were attending college, did you work in restaurants?
I did work in restaurants. We
what kind of jobs?
Mostly server, and I was trying to get into bartending at the time.
And when you refer to the city, you're talking about San Francisco.
San Jose. Yeah. So I worked in both places.
Okay, so what did that all teach you working in restaurants?
I think restaurants teaches you a lot of things. I mean, teaches you humility and
hard work,
yeah. And it's like it's just, I don't know. It's also, I think, about the fun part about it for me is like being the host almost. You have these guests that you service, and then you try to make their experience as best you can with whatever tools you have. So
I like the action of it too. Yeah. You're always doing
every
something.
Night's different.
Yeah.
Every night's different. Yeah.
And when you go home after, you're like, I just had a really hard day's work. Yeah.
It feels
fulfilling.
It feels satisfying. Yeah, exactly.
So somewhere along the line, you then moved to Japan. Was it after college or?
After college.
Why?
What part of Japan too?
After college, I graduated with a degree in accounting, and I went to go work for one of the big 5 accounting firms for a couple of months. Didn't really go so well. And then I was just in time to apply for the JET program. And the JET program, if you're not familiar, is where the Japanese government hires college graduates from around the world, as long as English is your native language, and puts them into public schools in Japan. So a lot of people from Hawaii did it before that I heard about. So I took the opportunity, and then I was accepted. So I got placed in Fukuoka, Japan, which is on the southernmost island of Kyushu, on the actual northern side of Kyushu. And it was fantastic. I was really lucky to be there. I actually had family that was there. And
did you work in restaurants while you were there?
I'm not supposed to say I did, but I...
Well, it's under the table.
But no, not under the table, but it was just sort of toward the end of so I was in JET for 4 years, and then toward the end of that, we had been going to restaurants and things like that, and then I always had was drinking wine and following wine, but then we had a friend who needed some help at her restaurant, and then so I wanted to help her out and see what we could do there.
How's the wine scene in Japan?
The wine scene in Japan is probably one of the most surprising things that nobody knows about. If I divulge the secret, I think whatever you want in the world of wine, you could probably find it there, as long as you're willing to pay. But I was really surprised that, of course, coming from California, and throughout all my experiences in Napa and Sonoma and other wineries in California, then going to Japan, there's a very limited amount of California wine over there. It just doesn't have as big of a footprint as it does here, of course. But you know, they are mainly focused on the old world benchmarks. So anything you want from Burgundy, Champagne, Bordeaux, Italy. I mean, you name it, they got it. If it's quality wine from anywhere in the world, basically they have it.
But like you said, if you want it, you can find it there. I think that is something to say about Japan for almost anything.
That's true.
You know, like they have like their what they like, and what they like is pretty interesting. Especially coming from Hawaii, like they're obsessed, or they have deep love for Hawaii. You know.
Well, that obsession translates into wine, and so I think when they, you know, get into something, they get into it. And then, you know, what was really surprising to me was that's where I learned about a lot of the old world benchmarks was through Japan. And what's funny is that, so in pronunciations for French wines, I learned through reading Japanese. It's kind of a weird like Pulini Morashe, all in katakana Japanese.
Wait, so this was after that French Laundry experience, though?
Yeah, this is all after that. Yeah. So it's kind of a.
And before that, you're a Bombay Sapphire Martini drinker.
It was more. Well, I think it was more of just like the bartender kind of thing, and then the transition from spirits, you know, into wine. I think you guys talked about that in one of the podcasts, where a lot of people start with liquor and then they kind of move into wine or beer or something like that. So
something that you can drink
longer.
Yeah, as our daughter puts it, you know, you start at 4 or 5 and you can still watch the
10 o'clock.
evening. Exactly. That's the cool
I think that's a great way to put it.
No,
that's exactly what it is.
So then you move back to Hawaii, and you have a daytime job, but you also started working in restaurants. And how is the working in restaurants in Japan and Hawaii? How are they different?
I think the restaurant culture in Japan is just very different than the restaurant culture here. I mean, there's 100%. Different levels of dining, cuisine, and things like that. So Hawaii is, I mean, coming from being born and raised here, and then, you know, seeing what things are like on the mainland, things like that. I guess it's just that Japan, I think, in a sense, is a lot more rigid in a lot of ways. So there's delineations of what style of cuisine. Fine dining is fine dining, like that's your level, right? Then you kind of have a notch down, a little bit more casual, and you've got kind of everything in between.
And then you have 7-Eleven.
And you have 7-Eleven and Lawson, and, you know, those convenience stores that have some of the greatest snack
egg sandwiches ever. Have you ever had an egg sandwich from 7-Eleven in Japan?
No.
Oh my God, bro! They use the orange yolk eggs, just like a $2 egg sandwich.
It's quite the experience in Japan. I get it. He's such a yokester. You have to understand. Okay, so
that wasn't prepped at all.
So you come back to Hawaii, and how long did it take you to get back into restaurants?
Well, thanks to my mentor, Mr. Furuya here.
Me? I didn't have anything to do with this.
I got back into restaurants as the sommelier of the Halekulani in November of 2009.
So what is that, 11 years?
Yeah, 11 years. So
you've been a sommelier 11 years, and you work mainly downstairs, but sometimes upstairs.
Yep, in both restaurants. La Mer upstairs, or La Mer is on the second floor. French food, neoclassical French, and then Orchids now has a Mediterranean influence to the cuisine.
And you used to work at La Mer, right?
Yeah, long time ago.
I think before his name's still on the wall. Yeah.
Your name's still on the wall?
His name's still on the wall. I think half the staff still has stories.
They're all collecting Social Security, but it's okay. Abraham Lincoln was president back then. But, okay, so, you know, the point is that I just wanted to say, you know, Halekulani is a world-class resort. It wasn't that long ago. It was ranked the #1 hotel in the world for a few years. Yeah, it's really highly revered across the world. And so you know that the attention to detail in terms of service and hopefully hospitality is going to be very keen. You know, that they try to specialize that. They have what I used to give the class. It's called Service Excellence for all the new employees. You have to sit through all these seminars for days, and the most important seminar was called Service Excellence. It's a way of thinking, and Halekulani excels at that. But the whole point I wanted to say was that, you know, the very fact that he works at both restaurants there, so he has his feet in Mediterranean-inspired foods, and he also works with French-style foods. You know, very top class, very well done. You know, that Italian chef is something. You know, he's a character, man, and I think he's from Liguria, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you know, so that's the home of pesto and all that stuff. So
Genoa,
he comes, he comes to Vino. You know, pre-pandemic, he comes to Vino. So I've gotten to know him over the years. Very talented gentleman and whatnot. But the point is, he gets to pair wines with that kind of food, which I'd like to
Talk
get
about
into.
Yeah.
Maybe we start now.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, what is your approach in trying to pair wines with Italian or Mediterranean style foods? What do you look to do?
Well, I think the approach to pairing wine with food in general is that it's not a battle to see who's gonna win kind of deal in the pairing game. It's more. I've always taken the approach that wine should accentuate the cuisine, no matter what cuisine it is. So you know, there's place for trophy wines. There's place for wines that score 100 points. But what I found, especially on the points thing, is that a lot of these wines that score a lot lower on the scale work so much better with food. A lot of these more, I would say, humble and, you know, like Chuck likes to say, a lot of these country style wines work a lot better with the food, just because I think
that's what they're for.
That's what they're for. And then it kind of goes with that old adage of what grows together goes together kind of thing. So things that are from the same region, things like that. So,
you know, on that note, I'd like to say, so they're upscale, whereas Vino, we're trying to be more neighborhood, more casual. And so when you go, like one of the best restaurants I've eaten at in Italy is called Mangiabono. And it's like this small hole in the wall, right in the middle of Genoa. Okay, and they now have wine glasses, but they're like this big and with a short stem like that. But overall, they were serving, you know, typically when you go to wine bars and everything, it's a glass like this, but much more narrow. And that's how they serve the wines.
Why?
And I think it's just a neighborhood restaurant, man. I mean, this is how they drink wine at home. They don't have fancy Riedel or any of this stuff. And so when you go to restaurants like Mangiabono, the food was so vivid, so fresh, so alive. When you eat at those kind of restaurants, you don't even think about the wine. You know, their wines, they have a white, a red, a
like
rosé.
you said, it's just to wash it down.
Just to wash it down, you know. So it's we take a very our two restaurants take a very different approach on it all. And so, how do you get people to enjoy wine with the Mediterranean cuisine or style cuisine?
I think in the setting that we have in Orchids, I mean, if you look at where the dining room is, it's right on the water. You can literally hear the waves crash against the wall. The ocean is right there. I mean, it just
right on the other side of the wall.
Right on the other side of the wall, literally.
I mean,
you can fly a champagne cork in with no problem into the water.
You get the spray if you're sitting you get the spray often.
You get the spray.
And it's open air?
It's open air. Yeah, it's open restaurant. So
it's a beautiful setting. One of the most beautiful in Hawaii. It's right on the ocean.
So, you know, given that setting, it's kind of like, I mean, you just want something that's to borrow another word from Chuck that he's, you know, given to everyone, is gulpable. Like, it's something that, you know, you want to have to be able to eat outside, kind of al fresco, and that sort of
more refreshing,
right?
Lighter, maybe.
And you have to also, I think, take into account that it is open air, so the wines need to be at a certain temperature, a little bit more. And you know, we try to do it a little bit cooler, just to sort of give it that time to have that refreshingness to it.
Hey, Cully, can you grab that white bottle of white wine? Maybe pour Sean some so we can relax a little bit here. Okay, so now let's talk about La Mer. La Mer is French food?
La Mer is French, yes.
It's fine dining, it's upscale. Is coat still required?
Coats are not required. We are doing...
To dine in or for employees?
No, I guess before it used to be coats were required, right?
Yeah.
So
For guests?
for
Yep.
guests.
You have to wear a coat to dine at La Mer.
Yeah. Now we've taken it to the point where business casual in Hawaii is aloha shirt. So
Yeah.
I think we welcome aloha shirts. But before it used to be jacket or long sleeve.
Okay, and
collar
so
shirts.
the food of La Mer is more.
We call it neoclassical French, but it's
My brother's name is Neo.
Yeah.
Oh no, wrong one.
more like but it's
Wow.
I think what you'd imagine for, French cuisine with the emphasis on sauces and things like that, a little bit heavier, but then done in a lighter style, just because the touch of our chef is a much more delicate, elegant style.
So downstairs, Italian, so more earthy, more rustic,
The food?
higher acid kind of wines down there, right?
Fresher food. So I think they need that sort of
Zip.
brightness and the zip and that energy to kind of keep everything lively, keep it light.
And so up at La Mer, what kind of
Up
wine
in La Mer, we have a little bit different dynamic. Obviously with the French cuisine, and it plays into such a a stage for some of the greatest wines in the world. I think you could enjoy the trophy wines there with the food, because in that sense, the food is, or the cuisine is what it is, and then a lot of people enjoy what they want to drink when they come there, regardless of the food. But
Okay, so let me just ask you this. So on your wine program downstairs,
yes,
if you could, for your seafood, let's say dishes, if you could just choose one wine that you would order if you went in there, budget, considering your wallet, considering the fact it's you and your wife, what wine would you recommend?
Like, what's your go-to?
what's your go-to? This would be my go-to, honestly.
Yeah?
Chamalou Vouvray, from Catherine Didier Chamalou in the Loire Valley in France. But this is Chenin Blanc.
It's so good.
I think this is one of the wines that when I first came back to Hawaii, I never had it till I got to Halekulani, and then Chuck and Kevin Toyama, the wine director there, kind of showed me this wine, and it was the 2008 vintage, and I was just blown away by the versatility of it. You could have this with fried anything, calamari or something like that.
What
or
about like
French
tempura?
fries? Or for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
With what?
Tempura?
You can see that with
That's
tempura
Kim.
for
He's
sure.
the guy.
Yeah. And any kind of light fish or anything. You can see that there's some honey tones to the wine.
Yeah.
It hints at sweetness without actually finishing sweet, which does give it a little bit more body as well. So
Is that unique to just where this is from, or is that Chenin Blanc?
Oh no, this is one of a
this
kind
is,
wine.
Yeah, I think this is done in a very, very masterful style.
There's no other Chenin Blanc, and there's no other white wine in the world like this. It's very unique.
And how much do you pay for a bottle of
So
this?
I bought this bottle at Tomura's,
Wow.
$21.88.
Wow.
So again, this is the grape variety Chenin Blanc. It's grown in clay, limestone, sandy soils in the Loire Valley. So just to give you an idea, the Loire Valley starts somewhere in the center of France, heads westward, winds and turns and whatnot, and empties in the Atlantic Ocean. So that cut right there, the air from the Atlantic Ocean is very cold. So it just gets sucked into the valley. So it's a very cool growing area. You have lots of marine soils there because of the backwash from the Atlantic, the back surges. So it's just a very unique environment. Typically, the three most renowned white grapes from the Loire Valley is Muscadet to the farthest west of the Loire Valley. Then you have Chenin Blanc, kind of like in the middle, in the meat and potatoes. And then you have Sauvignon Blanc to the eastern edge in what's called the Central Vineyards. The last two, the Chenin Blanc and the Sauvignon Blanc, in my opinion, have very hard edges. So you may not notice it when you're tasting it, but when you have it with certain kind of foods, it raises its head. These wines just have a real structured acidity to them.
But this is an anomaly.
Yes. So to me, Chamalou is more gentle. It's more transparent. It's more minerally. It's more ethereal. It's light. It's not about bravado. It's not about mojo at all. That's Chamalou. And then the other thing I want to say, just to give the viewer some sense of history, this general area is where Joan of Arc did her crusades. So it goes way back. You know, this is where the royalty would vacation during the summer. This is where they had their summer castles and chateaus and whatnot.
On Guildsom, I was reading that it was the epicenter of French culture until the Palace of Versailles was built. Then it started to transfer.
Most chateaus in France, I think. I mean, there's so many.
Longest wild river in Europe, too.
Wow.
Loire River.
So what else do you want to say about this wine?
I mean, this wine is also one of those that really, I think, from year to year, it kind of shows vintage variation. Not that vintage variation is really a thing, but I
Is
think
that something fun for you?
It's fun in the sense that it sort of is another variable in the mix of things. But I think year in, year out, you know, it always stays true to type, and it's always, no matter what, it's a very versatile wine. It can really go and blend and, you know, play well with a lot of other things.
As well as just on its own.
As well as just on its own, yeah. I mean.
So what would you would say something fried with this?
I think
is what you would recommend.
Fried foods or like fried, you know, appetizers, furomistos, those kind of things, or even calamari, yeah. Or even, I think, you know, fresher foods as well do kind of well with this. At Nanzan Giro, they do a lot of play on fresh and then also cured and things like that. So this plays very well into that umami sort of miso kind of character as well.
So let me clarify this. So, you know, he has a daytime job, and then he's a sommelier at the Halekulani hotel. But in addition to that, he consults for several other projects, such as Nanzan Giro.
Yeah,
which is an art gallery / restaurant. Super cool concept.
Kind of down there by Alamona Shopping Center. Yeah. In addition to that, he consults for Chef Chris Kajioka, specifically with Senia and Miro Kaimuki, correct?
Yeah, and Chef Rush is also at Senia, yeah. Chef Rush and Chef Chris at Senia.
I'm sorry, yes. And so, you know, now you've kind of we're kind of segueing from the Mediterranean food of orchids, the French food of La Mer, and now let's talk about pairing wines with Nanzan Giro.
So Nanzan Giro is originally from Kyoto in Japan. And their concept was a take on the traditional kaiseki cuisine, which was a lot of little dishes, but very traditional. But their take on it was to make it a little bit more modern. So they would use a lot of the same techniques, but they would do sort of modern twists on it and not have to adhere so much to the traditional, you know, rigidity of having to do things in a certain way. So there's always a soup course in the menu. There's always fish. There's, you know, so I mean, the menu is typically structured the same, but it's just what they do with the cuisine that makes it unique and different. So
do you use this wine regularly there?
We do, yes, definitely. This wine goes with so much different things when we need it to go with different things, and like I said, it's so versatile.
So you know, talking about the past podcast we did, when you talk about branches, this wine has not a lot of branches. Then it's
well, for me it does, but for him,
the branches thing. I know about the branches.
He was talking about his experience of pairing wine at that Montana food festival, and that he had to plan ahead and he had to choose a wine or wines that didn't have a lot of branches on it to pair with hopefully food that didn't have a lot of branches on it. So it seems to me that because you use this wine so much,
we do use this wine a lot. I think that with its versatility though, there's certain things that we try not to that it does sort of clash with, yeah. So I think just the grape itself and sort of that what makes it really good with some things makes it not so good with other things. So I think sometimes if you do this with some kind of hamachi or really kind of fishy, oily fish, it tends to accentuate the fishiness sometimes. So we try to stay away from, you know, those kind of things. Use other wines for those things.
So let me just clarify this whole thing about where I stand on this wine. To me, this is one of the most interesting, one of the finest white wines in the world, period. I mean,
no matter the price.
No matter the price, I love this wine. It's totally refreshing. It's
It is
totally
totally.
invigorating. It's totally thirst quenching, and you know it's totally affordable at $21.88 a bottle here in Hawaii. You know, so let me say that. But you know, I tend to be picky when it comes to wine and food. So, like I told you, Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc have hard edges. So that's why I tend to gravitate a lot more to Riesling-based wines because it's a more gentle, rounder acidity, a riper acidity because they're harvesting in October, so that it's more tartaric acidity. It's a ripe acidity, and so that's what I tend to look for. And typically, the ones I look for tend to be lower in alcohol. You know, so you know that's all. But this wine, dishes specifically lobster, scallop, crab. That's where this wine really excels in. This wine with lobster, in all kinds of preparation, is magic. It's bank. Man, this wine is so good. I would say the same thing with scallops. So I've been carrying this wine since the 80s, bro. And you know what? We were one of the first. I mean, we were there when this wine was coming into the United States. I knew them from back in the late, I would say, late 80s, early 90s. You know, I mean, they were just this young, cute couple. They didn't have any children at that point. You know, their families was from the area, and they started their own dream winery. And then they came to Halekulani, right? You got to meet them?
I did, yeah.
You know, awesome. You could see she has that twinkle in her eye. She's something special. This wine, and instead of growing and getting more commercial, this wine stays true to the value. Cully, at $21.88 a bottle, man.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, man. I think that's... Okay, so now we talked about
Sorry, one more question about this one. Is it easier to get than some of the other ones that we've talked about?
He knows more about stores than I do.
Yeah, I think it should be readily available. I mean,
because I know we talked about the Marchigliani, that's a harder one.
That's
to
harder
find.
one to get, I think. But this one comes in.
So they had this.
Yeah,
You said it's at our field in Kailua, and then I don't know if it's at Fuji.
I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah. But I think we get a good amount of it to Hawaii every year, so that we're able to do it, by the glass in a lot of different programs.
I think this wine is so good.
It is very good.
God, you want to grab that red bottle while we're talking? Okay, so we talked about Nanzan, Giro, and so now I'd like to talk a little about some of your other projects that you work with in terms of pairing wines with the food. So should we start off with Senia or Miro first?
Yeah. Senia is sort of one of those things that...
Which is, in case you don't know, one of the, if not the top-rated restaurant in Hawaii right now.
Yeah, it's a real privilege to be able to work with the restaurant, and it's interesting in the sense that they have both a la carte dining room as well as a chef's counter. Mm-hmm.
So like a true chef's counter right?
It's it's a little bit off to the side, and it's only 8 seats. Well, it used to be only 8 seats a night.
And how often are you there?
So the thing is, I'm not on the floor. I don't have floor presence at any of the restaurants, but we just kind of help out when we can. Mike Winterbottom is the sommelier on the floor that you'll find at Senia almost every day of the week, which is he's come up through the I think through the wine ranks and just is on fire right now. I mean, the guy is so passionate. He's so dedicated.
He started off in the kitchen, I believe.
He did. He's a chef by
Kalapawai.
trade. Yeah.
Oh. So a lot of good guys come out of Kalapawai, huh?
You worked there?
No.
Well, Micah's come from there. And
Mike used to work for Micah.
And so he's chef trained, but now he's on the floor as a som.
Yeah. So he was doing a bunch of different stuff as a chef. And then, but now he's kind of transitioning into I think the wine bug just bit him, and then he's into it, man.
That's someone we're going to have in
that must be
podcasts.
A pretty interesting take on wine and services coming from the kitchen.
He's a deep thinker too, He thinks like so deep, it's incredible. I was fortunate to be on a wine trip with him this past August in Paso Robles, a Som camp.
Yeah.
And so that guy is pretty deep thinker, man.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about which one? Senia first?
Yeah, so Senia
What kind of food?
Senia's
It's fine dining.
food is it's nice. It's elegant.
class.
It's sophisticated. The plates are beautiful. All the attention to detail. I think the pedigree from is definitely, you see it on every single plate in that restaurant. What's fun is that with the chef's counter menu, that because it's constantly changing and it's one of those things that there's nothing is really the same every day, so it really gives Mike and I an opportunity to use different wines, to let people try different things, and really sort of push the envelope on what can we do with this or what can we do with that, depending on what the chef wants to do that day. Kind of thing. So,
and Miro's along those lines?
More creative, essentially, for you. More,
it's kind of like think on your feet and what's going to work.
Yeah.
So to me, in that situation, it's kind of like my situation in Montana.
Yeah.
You got to have wines that are a tree. And then when the food comes at you, you have to understand where the branches are so that the wines can fit in with those branches, so they
Instead,
still
like
work.
you said, not clashing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's sort of one of those things that, there's definitely, I think, times where you see the food on the line and you got to make that change. You see it come up on the pass and you're like, this wine's
The
not
chef's
going
going to tweak it at the last moment.
Yeah.
Man. There's no when you're a chef-driven restaurant like that, of that level, they want to make sure the food is perfect.
And then at that point, it's just get the wine to not, just get out of the way kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so here we are. Now we're talking about, again, this podcast is about the pure enjoyment of wines. And you selected two, a white and a red.
Yes.
So you kind of talked about, so we wanted something that was what you would enjoy to drink.
Yes, definitely.
A wine that would be affordable for the viewers and all of us. We don't have big bank accounts like you with nice shirts like this. I keep wearing the same shirt over and over again.
My long sleeve has a stain on my wrist.
Yeah. So we're in a different. We're in that Jaguar. You saw his Jaguar down there? Oh my God! Oh,
no, it's a soccer van.
Okay, so here we are with the Pinot Noir now. So again, is this what do you enjoy about this?
What wine is this, first of all?
This is Costa d'Oro, Pinot Noir, Santa Barbara County. And I think Pinot Noir is one of those grapes that do a number on you. They trap you, and then they make you think things are easy, and then you try to duplicate the experience, and you never sort of get that same thing. But I think Pinot at a price point under $20 is pretty difficult, and I think this comes in around 20. So it's
I think it's more like 22 in my opinion, but
yeah. But
under 25.
Okay,
we'll go with that. Under 25.
Yeah. But and it's so unpretentious, and it's just it's a joy to drink.
It's fun.
It's fun. It helps that the winemaker Gary Burke is been supporting a lot of these projects in Hawaii for a long time. I think he's done the Cuvée Lace at Halekulani since '98.
That's a designer Chardonnay.
Chardonnay.
Halekulani Hotel.
He does some of your private labels, right?
He does a CF Pinot.
CF Pinot.
Which is very different from this. Very different.
But Pinot is his specialty? No.
Pinot and Chardonnay.
Yeah.
That's what he does, yeah. But just to have a Pinot that's, that you can, I think you can serve this wine out of the fridge and it's just as good as it is out of cellar temp. If not even better, a little bit colder.
And what is that difference in temperature?
I don't know. I think it's just that we're here and it's hot. It's just that sort of refreshing factor. But
so what do you get for why do you like this wine so much?
It hits all the boxes for me as far as just something that I don't have to think about it too much, but it's got very beautiful perfume. Mm-hmm. It's got that nice nose, and I think it's a lighter styled Pinot type of Pinot, especially being from California.
A more pretty style.
More pretty, yeah.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
And so what would you eat this with?
So
what would you eat?
This could go, I think if you were like just start to finish, if you just open this, at my mom's house on Sundays, we just have, my mom like cooks all day, and then she's got a whole bunch of food on the table, and then wines like this go with pretty much anything she wants to make. So
yeah, I think it's important serving with that kind of opportunity. It's important serving this wine at the right temperature, so that it's not. It's more about refreshingness.
Yeah.
So let me explain to you. Costa de Oro means coast of gold. This comes from the Santa Maria Valley down in Santa Barbara, California. It's essentially a one-man operation, Gary Burke.
This is the guy that only has 1,000 labor hours.
No, that's Fred Scherer. Oh. But Gary's similar. Gary does all the work himself except for picking. He and his family and another family own the Gold Coast Vineyard. It's up on a mesa that's probably 5 or 10 minutes closer to the ocean than the most iconic Bien Nacido vineyard, one of the greatest vineyards in all of California. Because it's up on a mesa, it gets pounded by the coastal winds. So it's a very stressed vineyard. In addition to that, what I love about this, and you'll hear me talk about this more and more as we go along, sand is the major component of this soil. And so sand is a marine soil, so it can create minerality like this. But at the same time, it drains, so you're not going to have thickness. You're not going to have blackness as much. You look how light this color is. And that's intentional. And then the other thing that I love about this, he uses an heritage vine that's referred to as Martini. So Martini is not fashionable. It doesn't make big, black, showy, flamboyant, highly acclaimed Pinot Noir, which is why I asked him to make the CF. Martini is more about transparency and being reticent and delicate and finesse,
which
and
is
nuance.
Probably why it's called Martini.
Yeah.
So that's why it goes better with the kind of foods we do here in Hawaii, in my opinion. So that's why I asked him. And these vines were planted in 89, 90, and 91 for the CF Pinot, So, all of that stuff makes sense. Now, understand, this wine will never get 90 points or 100 points. It will never. And it will never, you take it to a bunch of wine collectors, it's the exact opposite from showy, black, award-winning Pinot Noir. This is the exact opposite. But at the same time, you want to talk about pretty, light, refreshing, and being able to stay awake until the 10 o'clock news.
This is it.
This is it in terms of gulpability and deliciousness and everything. Affordability, all of that stuff. This is the real, and the very fact that their family has owned their vineyard for so long, I'm sure they don't have a mortgage anymore, so that's why the wine is more affordable. And they're not doing all the fandango stuff and all the. This is just Gary Burke, mano y mano, with the grapes from his vineyard.
I think if I want to add one more thing to this is that, when you put your nose in the glass, the first thing you don't get is like this fume of alcohol. Like it makes you want to smell it, and it has that inviting sort of perfume to it.
Perfume meaning aromatics?
Aromatics, right.
Yeah.
So it's got more of...
In a savory way, though. I think this wine is more savory than fruity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think that intensity, that first whiff you get from the wine is not, it's not, like Chuck was saying, it's not fruit. It's not just how big, how bold, how fruity you can make it for impact. It invites you in, it kind of coaxes you in to try to have another sip, another smell to it, which is, I think, a very interesting part about. And I think a large part about wine enjoyment is when you go back to the glass, it makes you want to go back to the glass.
This wine, I keep going back to it, and I'm like, wow, this wine is so pretty. It's so well balanced. It's so remarkably light on its feet. And it's like all the other country wines we're talking about, it's light, it's delicious, it's gulpable, it's, so I think that this was a good call, Sean.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'd like to segue. Good job.
I had to clear it through. And then he's like, okay, that's good.
I don't know about your shirt choice, but I'll say the wine choices are really good tonight. Thank you. I'd like to, this guy, man, too much, man. Sorry. And so, these kind of wines, when would you look to enjoy it? When you're looking to enjoy wine, do factors like the ambient temperature or who you're with or what kind of mood you're in, do all these things play factors into, not your wife, but you?
I think there's a time and place for everything, like anything else.
So you still drink beer and liquor?
Absolutely. Well, we don't do for the 10 o'clock news thing, we definitely don't do a lot of liquor. But yeah, beer, we do drink a lot of beer.
You do craft beers or do you do whatever?
Whatever, really. But it's so interesting with the craft scene now and how there's so many different things. It's like the flavor palette has exploded as far as, you know, now it's like, oh, let's try this, let's try that, let's try that. So something different along those lines, just kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm on the lines of what Fred was saying last episode of I do Coors Light and then I'll dive more into wine, you know. I'll stick with the light beer and then do more.
Yeah. Well, and I think with these craft beers, I mean, they kind of pack a punch. Like they're not. I mean, we do maybe one, and then we're like, okay, that's good. And then if me and my wife share a bottle of wine after that, then that's pretty much it. So.
She likes Burgundy. She likes champagne.
Is that true?
Okay.
That is true.
That's it, man. But she deserves it. Her two kids are their two kids are, you know, they take a lot of time and energy because, you know, they're very special kids. Honestly, I'm all joking. They're very charming and whatnot. But, you know, these two are very hands-on, just like Melissa and Fred with their kids. They're very hands-on in how they raise the kids. Okay, so let me just take a sidetrack a little bit. Let me ask you some questions about the sommelier area. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what does being a sommelier mean to you?
I think the answer to that sort of changed from the very beginning of entering the profession and to now. But I think in general sense, being a sommelier is I think our purpose is to add value to the restaurant, is to add value to the dining experience, to add value to our guests. And I mean, if you didn't drink wine, you would never have an experience with a sommelier. I mean, it's not one of those things that, you know, it applies to the wine drinkers. But yeah, I think our purpose is to create and sort of supplement the dining experience that the chef has set forth.
So you know, you pair wines with some of the most celebrated restaurants of Honolulu with their foods, you know, and so the two wines that you have selected for today's podcast, you may use in those programs, but at the same time, they're very applicable and practical for home use. Wouldn't you say that?
Absolutely.
So, you know, like you said, fried fish, it could be something simple like that, or it could be, you know, shrimp, just quickly, you know, cooked, pan fried.
Or roast chicken with this Pinot Noir. I mean, just something.
Yeah, so that's the cool thing that I wanted him to really, you know, think about when he was selecting the wines. Not only are they applicable in terms of world class and food friendliness, and et cetera, for all the restaurants that he's involved with, but also for the viewer. These are wines that are $25 and below that could work easily at home or just enjoying, and most importantly, would open new horizons of what wines can be. Is that safe to say?
I think so.
So because you have that understanding of world class, but then you still have the understanding of something practical like this, is there anything that you'd want to say to the viewer as far as along the lines of pure enjoyment or people getting into wine, that you have any advice or anything that you want to comment on?
I think, you know, a lot of the enjoyment of wine is finding different wines and, you know, experiencing different things. Luckily, you know, through our profession and through everything else, we've been able to work with wines like this. So our scope of, you know, we get to try so many different wines that the average person, I guess, that doesn't go to these professional tastings and, you know, do these things that they don't have the opportunity to do. But and then when we find one, it's kind of like, oh, you know, this is like the diamond in the rough kind of thing. We've, you know, but I don't know. It's sort of like, I mean, I'm daunted myself when I walk into a wine store and see shelves upon shelves of, you know, labels and animals and things and and things that look cool, but maybe, you know, you don't know where they're from or what the deal is. So I don't know. I don't think there's a very easy answer to it. You know, probably do a little bit of homework, see what you like, go to the store and see if they have knowledgeable staff there. And I think as a sommelier, a lot of times when we are at the restaurant, one of the favorite questions I like to ask is, what wine do you enjoy,
At home.
at home normally? Yeah. And for the most part, people will say something. It's like, I don't really remember the name or the label, but if they do, and if they have a better idea of what they like, and then that kind of can let us know what style of wine that.
And like you said, that one question answers what price point they're looking for,
exactly.
and
it's
dry, sweet, white,
yeah.
red, rosé, sparkling,
yeah,
full-bodied, light-bodied. It tells a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, you can go off and say, okay, well, if you like that, then try this. If it's a little bit more, heavier, or if you want a little bit lighter, then you can go this way and do that. So,
it's really interesting. He was saying, asking questions. So, at Vino, the staff are really into wines in a very low-keyed way. You ask any of them, they may say something polite and everything like that, but they're really into it. They know the difference, of artisan and all that stuff. I mean, they're very humble about it, I think, down to earth about it, but they're really... So people are always asking me, what stores do you go to? And so I always think to myself, I can't answer that. Depends on what you're looking for. Every store offers something different. Mm-hmm. So then now what I do is I'll ask him, or I'll ask Ariana, or I'll ask the staff at Vino, where do you guys buy your wines from? And so and what wines, like the Chamalou, where did you get that from? Kind of thing. And so I know who's carrying what. And that's also how you can find, where some good wines are.
What's kind of like your take on discovering new wine is asking other people.
Yeah, exactly.
So on your local level, asking people in the profession where they buy wine from.
Yeah, especially those that are, that have the passion, they got it, and, so I think that's, there's someone like Mr. Fashionable here, Mr. You know how it starts out, right? First, they don't say anything about your shirt.
Really?
They look like this side eye.
It's like, okay, I'll change.
But then about a year later, it's like, oh, you must really like that shirt, huh? And then pretty like 2 years later, you're not going out dressed like that, huh?
I think we're already at that point, yeah.
After a while, it's in the trash.
No, after a while, I put your shirt on the bed. Go change. Hurry up. We're going to be late. Sean, that's what you got to look forward to, bro. Anyway,
I welcome that for sure.
On behalf of Kali and myself, we want to thank you for coming here, sharing your
It's very nice to meet you for the first
all
time.
your experiences and everything like that. And, again, in pursuit of the enjoyment of wine, I think you have some very, very interesting perspectives. To all of you, thank you for tuning in this week's episode. We hope to see you next week. Until then, aloha, everybody.